to Honey in the Rock. I'm Sophie, and this is Kathryn Sanders.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on.
I'm so glad to be here.
I sprung this on you last minute when I was at dinner at her house the other day, and then I was like, okay, because I feel like I've known you for what, 5 years now?
Yeah,
4 or 5 years.
Yep.
And then I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know your testimony, and so I'm excited to hear. Well, and I've seen you live it out by the way you love our family and take care of the people around you, and so I'm excited to see what it looked like to be where you are today. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, we met, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago. We live in the same neighborhood, and my first memory, she has 2 boys the same age as my brothers, and so my first memory is you and my mom walking and the boys playing basketball together.
Yes.
Is that where it started?
Yes.
And then, it was COVID, and then it hit COVID, or it's around COVID, and so we were just all hanging out all the time, and now here we are. So, it's sweet.
Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah. All because of the walks.
And then COVID.
And then COVID helped that. Forced everyone to slow down.
Right.
And that actually was kind of a good time. Like, obviously, I know it's heartbreaking and hard, but for us, it wasn't a terrible season.
Yes.
We just hung out with our neighbors, which was fun.
It was great.
Okay, where'd you grow up?
I grew up here in Greenville.
Okay.
So, lived here almost my whole life.
Yeah.
And so my parents actually still live in the same house I grew up in.
That's fun.
Which is kind of rare, I feel like, these days. But I'm one of all girls in our family, and so it was a fun time to grow up. And we went to church just down the road.
Sweet.
And I went to school at that church for a long time. We moved away for 1 year, rented out our house while we were gone for a year, and then came back.
Where'd you go for the year?
Massachusetts.
So random.
I know, it really was random, but we had some relatives that lived in New Hampshire and Maine, and so it was an opportunity to go back for a short time.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then we came back, and we love Greenville. It's been our home, and it was a very wholesome, loving, growing up time.
Sweet.
And lots of opportunities, and loved our church and our school, and there's so many great things, and it was just a sweet time. I really felt like it was just busy like always, but lots of opportunities.
Good. Yeah.
And so we love that.
Yeah, that's really sweet. Do you have 2 sisters?
4 sisters.
How did I not know that? So you're one of 5? Okay, I did not know that. That's kind of crazy. So it was probably like loud and crazy at home.
Yeah.
All girls.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, going all the time.
Yeah. And then like growing up, going to the Christian school and going to the church there, did you like that? Or like looking back now, is that, are you glad that happened?
I'm glad it happened.
Okay.
I learned a lot about myself through that journey.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for that opportunity. Both of my parents sacrificed so much to put us in private school. So they were working full time, and I'm very thankful for that. But I also learned about what I believe and why I believe it through that.
Okay.
It was great having friends that most of the time chose to do what was right, and so that was easy.
Yeah.
But then there was also opportunity for me to make decisions.
Right.
And in a safe way, I guess is the best way to put it. And that was really good, but it also challenged me.
Yeah.
And so elementary and middle school, it was pretty easy.
Right.
Like I just went along for the ride. And then when I got to high school, our youth pastor, who I love, he and his wife, and they had 2 girls, really pushed me to think about what do I believe and why.
Yeah, that's good.
And it was through that I had a lot more challenges of living out my faith.
Right. That's really interesting. And I think not it being handed, but like that's how I grew up with religion. Christianity was here. This is what we do.
Yes.
And I think in everybody's faith, but especially when you grow up seeing this, there comes a time being like, okay, what do you believe and why do you believe it and what are you going to do about that?
Right.
And I think that question has to come eventually. And for you, that came in high school with like encouraging people around you, pushing you towards that. And I feel like sometimes it comes in college and you run the wrong way real fast. And you quickly learn this is not fulfilling. Why do I believe what I grew up believing and what my parents believed? But I think that finally asking yourself, like, what do you believe and why? And then what are you going to do about that? Is when your faith, like, becomes your own. Yeah. And you're either going to, like, proclaim the name of Jesus or you're going to run. Yeah. And you have to get to the point where you're going to choose one or the other. Right. So it's really sweet now to like hear that you walked through that, to know you where you are now, like mature in your faith, and like strong in what you believe, and like how your home has cultivated that and everything that goes along with you. So that's really sweet. And then after high school, what'd you do?
So I went to college. So for me, part of the way that we grew up was very different. Okay. I don't know if it was because we were all girls or I don't know. Yeah. But it was very protective in a good way. Again, it was good, but it also helped me to recognize what do I believe and why do I believe those things. So for me, I went to college and I lived at home and went to college. And I still had to pay for college, which was fantastic for me because it was, I'm not just going for classes, it's I'm going to get an education and I'm paying for it. So it needs to be meaningful. Right. I didn't get to choose where I went to college, so that was something. Right. But I got a degree. So that's all that matters.
That was probably an argument in the moment.
Oh, lots of arguments about that.
I'm sure.
Part of the what do I believe and why do I believe it came in there.
Right. Where'd you go?
I went to Bob Jones. Okay,
that's what I thought. But then I was like, wait, because Brian went to Bob Jones too, right? And that's where y'all met? Okay. And I think there is like if you're from South Carolina or Greenville, there's like the stigma around Bob Jones, or if you're not, it's just like a very Christian school, but it's very like, I would say rule based, but you went there, so you would.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially when we were there, it was more about the rules and what are you doing outwardly versus your relationship. Right. Yeah. They still put an emphasis on that, but you were I don't want to say judged, but you were. You really were about whether or not you're doing what's right or wrong.
Which then is not Christ-like. Which is probably confusing. Like growing up being like, this is Christianity, this is what we believe, and then it comes to the time of being like, well, what do I believe? And then going somewhere where it's surrounded being like, well, you better check all of these boxes, and if something's wrong on the inside, just push it down and make sure it looks like you have it all together.
And I think part of it is it's pushing something good a little too far. Yeah. And that's the way I would describe it. Yeah. For me, it's not bad to ask somebody a question or to talk to them about whether or not they're doing something. Right. But when they get in trouble for it first, then it's not about the heart and what their intentions were. It was about the action. Yeah,
that's really good. I've never really thought about that before, but that is very true. And it probably I can't speak for you, but I think if I was in a situation like that, I would work on being performance-based so much. Actually, this morning I was driving somewhere, and a song came on, and it's called the Dad Song, and it's like about God, like written for us, like as our Father, and it was like saying like, if you do nothing else, I still love you. And I would probably be the first to say that to other people, but do I believe that for myself? No. In the moment, and I was driving, I was like, whoa, what is happening right now? But I would tell anybody, like, no, like, you don't have to earn God's love. You don't have to earn anything. Right. He wants you as you are. You're his daughter. You're his child. Like, you're his. Like, you don't have to. Sure, obedience and actions outpour from our love for him, but like at the basis, we're not earning our love. And I think I realized genuinely this morning that I feel the need to earn God's love, and what that looks like in performance based. And so I think especially if I was in a situation where our performance was put on a pedestal, being like, are you doing the right thing? Are you checking all these boxes? Are you yes, I think that would be easy to get into this like performance mindset and being like, what do I have to do for God? When he doesn't need us to do anything. He chooses us, and that's really kind of him, and he chooses us to bring out the Great Commission. But like, he doesn't need us to be bossing things around. Okay, so Bob Jones, you learned a lot. It's probably lots of hard, but you probably learned a lot. And
lots of hard.
And your faith. When do you think, so the faith became your own, you would say in high school?
Elementary.
Okay.
Yeah, so I asked Jesus to forgive my sins, which was the biggest act for me in elementary. I was in 3rd grade, so just still a youngin'. And continued to grow in my faith, and then I got baptized in junior high, which was a huge step for me because I felt like in those moments, again, it was, I'm in a church I grew up in, and then you're in middle school, right? Which is so awkward anyway.
Yes,
and then
it's so hard
to go in front of people and get baptized. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? So I did, and I know that God was leading me through all those things. But when I got to high school and I really started to figure out why do I believe those things, it wasn't that my faith wasn't real. It was just questioning my own personal beliefs about certain things. And that's when I felt like my faith grew, but at the same time, it also separated me.
I'm sure,
So I felt like it was a growing and a distancing at the same time. And then in college, it was a lot of distancing because of the things we talked about. It was, I am more than what the rules say. And that was a struggle I was really struggling with. And so I felt like my faith really wavered in college. Like I said, the good things, I just felt like it was not good for me in my journey with following Jesus.
Okay, and then you met Brian, her husband, in college. And then when did y'all get married?
So we started hanging out right after I graduated, and he had another semester left. And so we started hanging out that summer. That fall, we had our first date, like official date. It wasn't just hanging out anymore. We had our first official date. And then 2 months after that, my sister passed away. And through that, several things happened.
I'm sure.
But God was very dear to me in those moments. Like, it was a comfort I've never known before. It was the first time I really experienced a death in my family that I truly remembered versus a distant relative. And so when I experienced that, I felt like God was so real in those moments. And it was that realization of saying, this is why I have faith. Like in those moments.
That's incredible.
Of all that. That's why I felt like, okay. It also showed me a side of Brian I never would have seen. Or would have taken us years to get there. You know, when you have that intense moments. And so we knew at that point, like we both knew after only dating really just a couple of months that was it. Like we were going to be together.
That's sweet.
And we didn't get engaged until the following fall. And then we got married 6 months later.
That's really sweet. I think sometimes when there's a lot of like growing and being sanctified and learning, and then it gets put to the test.
Yes.
And you know, your sister passes away,
Yeah.
or you lose a friend, or something like tragic happens.
Yes.
And in those moments, it's like, okay, a couple years ago, I was asked, why do I believe what I believe? And what do I do about it? And now it comes into practice of like showing up to that, and just like sitting at the feet of Jesus in moments like that. And I think it's really sweet how dear the Lord is in times of that, when it feels, and the worst thing happens. But how He can like show up in that and be so close to our heart and love us. And then I think something that I have to work on and be aware of is like welcoming others in to love me in that. And if you closed Brian off in that hard time, you would have never given him the opportunity to take care of you the way the Lord had like provided him the opportunity to do. And so I think, you know, either as somebody who is walking with somebody going through grief, like step up, and somebody who is in their hard season, like allow people to love you and take care of you, because you're going to see sides of them that you might have not gotten to see otherwise. So that's really sweet and hard. And it was like, that was probably a lot going on at once. Like you had just graduated, then you lose your sister, then you meet somebody, then you...
It was a lot. And, you know, talking about God's faithfulness, when you're sharing about sometimes you feel like you have to earn His love.
Yeah.
That season, I wasn't where I needed to be in my relationship with God. I knew I was saved. I knew what I believed.
Yeah.
But I wasn't pursuing God.
Yeah.
And in that moment, it wasn't, oh, wait, let you suffer a little bit, and then I'll show up. He immediately showed up. Where I was, reminded me why I was His, and called me to Himself in a way that was so sweet. In the deepest despair.
Yeah. He shows up then.
And it had nothing to do with anything that I had been doing. He was just being faithful for who He is. And that's one of the biggest moments for me, like the turning point in my relationship with God.
That's awesome.
That was that moment.
Of Him showing up.
Yes.
Even in, and I like how you said that. It's because of who He is.
Yes.
It's not of what we've done. It's who He is, and that's why He shows up for us.
Yes.
In the moments of despair. And like as believers, we get that comfort of Him just like wrapping His arms around us. And thank goodness for the times where I know I should be, you know, putting in some more effort, pursuing Him more. But the times where He just, it's because who He is. And that is so kind of Him. That's really cool. And just like the turning point. I think I feel like there's a lot of different points in our walks with Jesus.
Absolutely.
But I feel like there's always a pivotal one. Like when Grant passed away, that was when my pivotal of being like, I'm living for nothing. Like I say I believe, I'm doing the checking, but is my life proof of a living God? I don't think it is. And it wasn't really the opposite. I wasn't living proof of the world either. But I just was sitting here, like in warm water. Like it was clearly lukewarm. And it's like, if my life is proof of a living God, then I need to live like that. And I need to lean on Him in that. So it's really sweet. Okay. There was a turning point. Then when did you have your boy? When did you have Max?
So we were married 3 years before we had Max.
Okay.
I think that's right. Yes. 3 years before we had Max. So we moved down to Powdersville.
Okay.
So far away. We moved to Powdersville and we lived down there. We bought a house down there, we lived there, and then we moved to the second house when I was pregnant with Trev.
Okay.
And so Trevor came home to the new house.
Okay.
And we were there until we moved back to Greenville.
Yeah.
When we met y'all.
Right.
And started connecting.
That's awesome.
And
right.
Yeah.
And what do you think, like, as a mom, knowing how you grew up in a Christian home, but then also sometimes it being, like, rule-based and, like, living to this
Right.
outward appearance.
Right.
Was there anything like intentional as a mom that you were doing, maybe to show your
Yes.
boys or just in life, that it's like, yes, our
Yeah.
life should be proof of God, but it's really about the relationship with Him.
Absolutely. So when they were young, it was trying to be intentional about reaching their hearts.
Mhm.
So did you take the cookie and you weren't supposed to? Yes.
Right,
But what was your heart doing?
right, yeah, right,
And that's what we addressed.
yeah,
The actions are what's coming after,
yes,
but the point of decision is
Right.
in the heart.
Yeah.
And so we would always address that first.
Mm.
And as they got older and started to recognize more about what's happening
Yeah.
and different things, and we would ask the question, why do you need Jesus?
right,
And we still ask that question today.
right,
Why do you need Jesus?
Right.
Because at any point, if you don't need Jesus, who are you living for?
well, that's really good. I think that's a good question even for the listener to be asking themselves.
Absolutely.
Get an accountability partner to ask for you
Why do you
if you
need
don't have
Jesus?
a family, because you're so right, because it is once you think you don't need Him anymore, you either got a pride, we all got a pride problem, but either
We all
you
have pride,
either
right?
have some severe pride problem that you need to address,
Yeah.
or you're living for something that's not Jesus. And that's probably something I could ask every day. Why do I need Jesus today?
Right.
And the plain days, like today, like where not a ton was going on, it was just a normal day. Why do I need Jesus today? That's really cool. And the heart, going back to the heart issue, like addressing
Yes.
where's your heart. It reminds me of a verse, I don't know where it is, but the Bible that talks about like out of your heart the mouth speaks, and it's like coming from your heart
Yes.
out of your mouth. So it's just like
Yes.
that's like coming out of your heart is an action.
That's right.
And sometimes you can't see your heart, but you can see your actions. And sometimes you're good at hiding things. Sometimes we can like hide it good, our actions. But eventually, or at home, it's gonna come out. So I think that's really cool to then know like why you
Right.
ask your kids that. It's
Right.
because of how you grew up and
Yeah.
what the Lord taught you through that. So that's really cool. Well, that's really sweet. And then here you are now.
Yeah.
Both the kids out of the house.
Yeah.
That's been sweet. I always tell my friends, like when since I've been at school, they're like, oh, like, are your parents good? Like, empty nesters. I'm like, yeah, they have Brian and Kathryn. Like, they're also
Our
empty
best
nesters.
buds.
And like they're empty nest. They're both all empty nesters,
Yeah.
and they live close to each other so they can like eat together. So I think that's really sweet, especially like even to see like adult friendships.
Yeah.
The example of y'all with my parents is really good for us.
We
as
all
kids
need to live
to
in
see that.
community.
Yeah.
At all stages.
Yeah.
Because life continues to change.
Yeah.
So it's just like when the boys were little, when we're
Mhm.
talking about their hearts, well, they change.
Right.
We needed to change with
Right.
them.
Yeah.
The way we parent and the way that we are able to partner with them
Right.
is so different.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? We're not giving spankings anymore.
No,
You know what I mean?
right.
You
No.
just don't.
Yes, no. Right.
But your love grows.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reminder from God just how deep the love is.
Right.
And that is a God-given gift.
Right. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. Especially like a mother's love for her kid, which I don't know.
And a
but,
dad's.
yeah, and a dad's, of course.
Yeah.
And to love them, how much more does our Father in heaven love us that we don't have to earn?
In spite of ourselves.
Right. Right. Yes. And thank goodness.
Amen.
Thank goodness for that. Yeah, the community is really sweet. Like to have like adult type community, like we'll just show up to your house for dinner,
Absolutely.
or you'll just come over and you just like bring a bag salad, like
Yeah.
whatever it is, and just like living in community with people is how we were created to be.
Right.
And maybe something in America, I don't know if it's America or everywhere, that like sometimes it's separate. Like it's easy to be like, I'm in my house, I want to be alone, I want to do this, and it's hard sometimes to step out of that. But I think life is found in that community.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for coming on
Thanks for having me.
and sharing your story. It is really, I feel like we keep saying sweet, but it is sweet to like see you in your life and how you treat me and my family, and then to like hear where you came from and what you walked through and the tragedy of your sister and just all these things, but how it comes together so beautifully. And like life is still not easy. It's not like it's all figured out and check the boxes. It's like this work in progress, and you know, there's going to be different trials and different seasons of life, but what it looks like to hold on to Jesus in all of those, and being like, how do you need Jesus?
That's right.
So thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next week.